Hey, and we're back with Theory Workbook Level 1B, looking at pages 13 to 16. So over to page 13 first. A lot of this is about counting rhythms. They say review your counting skills by writing in the beats below each example, then clap or tap each example. It's good to try these out as you're working through them, but especially do all the writing part, right? And then get them in so that I can grade them. So as you're doing this, check out the time signature. This one's 4/4. This one's 3/4. That's 2/4. Just make sure you're noticing that because that will help you figure out how many beats you're looking at. Anytime you have eighth notes, remember to use and, right? So like this is half a beat. So this is 1 and, this is 2 and, right? And then this is 3 and the fourth beat. You can say 3 and 4 and, that's fine. Or if you want to just write 3, 4, that's fine. But just keep in mind they're whole beats, so they are, as you're thinking about them, they're as long, that 3 and, as this is, right? So 3 and 4 and, just make sure you have all the length. Same idea here. You've got quarter note. You can write an and, you don't have to. Just remember it is a whole beat, 3, 4, and, whichever method makes sense to you. So all this stuff should make sense. If you've got a dotted quarter note like you've got here, just like we've been doing in the basic timing everywhere else, this is a whole beat, so the 1 and then part of the second beat, then that's the and that goes with it. And then your third beat and your fourth beat. Right, so lots of places where you have dotted quarter notes, so just make sure when you count them, a whole beat plus another half a beat. All right, so that should work out. Into the next part, it says fill in the missing beats with notes or rests, vary your choices, then write the beats below each example. So as you're doing this part, again, check out the time signature. This is 4/4. This is only 2 beats. So you can say 1, 2, and then you need to add some notes or rests here. So we could say, like, let's say a quarter note and a quarter rest. Then we'd have 3, 4. But it can be any combination that ends up being 2 beats. All right, similar idea here. This is a 1 and, this is your second beat. Right, so we have 3 and 4 and here. So let's just stick a half note here. Right, that works out just fine. Okay, so just make sure as you're working through this that you, each measure should have some extra beats put in because they're all missing something. In the next line, this is 3/4 time, right? So you just want to add 1 beat. So you could just stick another rest, or you could stick a note there, or 2 eighth notes. Anything that makes this add up to 3 total beats. And then here it's 2 beats, right? Okay, hopefully that makes sense. You can add notes or rests, doesn't matter. At the bottom, if you're going to get confused, it's here because they don't really explain this. So it says each of the following examples uses upbeats, which is a note or notes which come before the first full measure. Write the beats or counts for each of the following examples. So what they're saying is if you look at the first measure of each of these examples, you don't have enough beats, right? It should be 4 beats in a measure. This is only 1 beat, right? And then we have a bar line. So when you do that, you count these as the end of a measure, right? So it's only 1 beat. It's the last beat of the measure. So this is your 4 and, right? And then this is your 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right. So just as you're writing this, just figure out how many beats are there, and if this is the end of a measure, what would that count be? What beat is that? If we look over here, same idea. This is 3/4 time, the last beat of a 3/4 time measure. 2/4 time, same idea, right? And then this one, it says 4/4 time, and you have 2 beats here. So let's just do this one together. So out of those 4 beats, this is 2 of them, the last 2. So this is 3 and 4 and, okay, hopefully that makes sense. The rest of it is just filling out the rest of the beats. Oh, also notice, like this one, at the end of the example, so like this last measure, this is a 1, 2, it's also incomplete, right? We should have had 4 beats altogether. So that's pretty typical. If you start with upbeats, then you end it with an incomplete measure. The idea is if you had repeat signs here, the little dots, when you go back, this is 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 and, right? So if you repeated, they would add up to be a whole measure. Okay, there's no repeat, but it still happens that way. All right, looking at the next page, that was the hardest part. Page 14 is about key signatures, which we've been looking at in the piano method book. We've had C major, we had G major, right? So G major just had one sharp, right? And it's always in this location. For treble clef, it's at high F, right? So the top line, this one. For the left hand, the bass clef, it's the fourth line up. It's always that F. So don't get creative. Like if you put an F sharp here, you're just going to confuse people, right? It's always that location for the key signatures. So at the bottom, it says key signatures also identify the main tonality or key of the piece, which we've talked about. You may determine the tonality of any piece with a sharp key signature by taking the last sharp and going up to the next musical alphabet letter or key on the piano. So what they're saying is you take your last sharp, in this case we only have one, it's an F sharp. If you take that and go up to the very next, just move to the right, just a half step, the very next thing over, it's a G. That means if you have one sharp, it's a G major, right? So in G major, right? So they talk about that some more. And we'll see more and more key signatures with more sharps, and then we'll hit flats also. But the idea is if you've got sharps, take your last sharp, go up a half step, and then you'll find your key. So in this case, G major. So here they ask you to write the G major key signature. Whoops, I already did it here, but that's okay. You're just copying it from up here, and then you're just copying it a few more times just to get used to location. And just remember with the sharp signs, right, when you draw those, you have vertical lines and then to that just a little slanted so you can see them, right? But make sure you're surrounding that top line, and in the bass clef, in the case of the bass clef, the fourth line. Alrighty, and then into page 15. Now they're adding a single flat key signature, right? And that is a B flat. You can see the little bubble part is around the third line. That's a B. It's a B flat. Left hand also, it's a B, right? Good boys do fine always. That's a B flat. So if you have a single flat, it says F major has a key signature of one flat, the B flat. That means you're playing all your B's flatted throughout a piece, right? And note that the flat symbol captures the B line in both treble and bass clef, just like we talked about. So here they have you just drawing, and again, I did that already, but you're just doing it again a couple times. And again, just watch location. Just make sure it's exactly there. Here they're just having you label, just comparing those three possibilities. You have one sharp in both hands, or no sharps and no flats, or one flat, right, in both hands. So the key signature is basically what sharps or flats you have. So in this case, this is an F sharp, right? You have F sharps in both hands. The key of G major. You can just say G. We're only working with majors right now, and that's totally fine. You can say major if you'd like. And then this is the opposite question. Draw the key signatures. So for G major, it should just look like this. All right. And then the last page, page 16. This part is a kind of a big review of a lot of stuff. If you forget some of these terms, I'll show you a place you can find it. But just to go over them a little bit. So the first question is, this piece is in the key of, right? We just looked at these key signatures. So you can see there's one flat, right? So what key is that? And the key signature is just the B flat, right? Time signature. Time signature, we just talked about that too. It's these numbers here, right? So you can write that down. Tempo marking, that's how fast you're going, the speed. And that is right here, right? So it's always before the piece starts, it tells you how fast you want to go. So if you write that up here, the tempo marking is that, and then which means, So these terms, if you forget them or if you hadn't learned them along the way, if you look at the very last part of the book, the last inside the cover, there is a big glossary here. So if we look for that term we just had, moderato, here's tempo indications. They also kind of define some of these questions for you, but tempo indications is how fast or slow. Here's moderato, and here's the definition. Right, so you can go take a look at that page. That'll help you a little bit. Okay, back to page 16. Dynamic marking. What is a dynamic marking? So dynamic, right, it just means either crazy or some kind of activity. It means how loud or how soft you're playing. So if you look at down here, dynamic marking is right here, right? So you can write that here, which means, and again, we'll look at the glossary. A lot of these things are in the glossary. Number 5, accidentals or sharps, flats, or naturals that do not appear in the key signature, right? We have a key signature, but we also have these little symbols here, like this one, this one. Anything that happens within the body of the music is called an accidental. It's not that it's an accident, that's just what they're called. So they ask, identify by note name and measure number the 2 accidentals that appear in this piece. So you can look at this. This is in the left hand, this one. That is a B, natural, right? And the measure, this is the first measure, that's the second measure, so it's in measure 2, right? And then there's another one later. All right, so hopefully that works out. Number 6, what's the opening harmonic interval? Opening is just the first one. And the harmonic interval in the left hand, harmonic interval just means 2 notes that you're playing at the same time, right? So the left hand part, this, those 2 notes, what interval is that? So the interval is the distance between them. So is that a second, a third, a fourth, or a fifth, right? So if you think about it, that is a third, right? If you play it, you'd see it. It's just F, you're skipping a G and an A, right? So that you're just writing that it's a third. And then it's followed by what harmonic interval? So the next one is this one, right? So they're just asking you, what size are these intervals? All right, number 7, measures of 1 and 2 are identical to measures what? So if you look at the right hand and the left hand, if you look along, this is not the same as that, right? What you're looking for is right hand, left hand that are exactly the same as these 2 measures, right? You'll find that, I think. Number 8, write in the beats corresponding to the right hand for the first 2 measures only, right? So you're just writing in counting numbers 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and paying close attention to the dotted quarter note, eighth note rhythmic pattern. How many times does that happen in this piece, right? So you're just looking for this, basically this happens again here. If you go through the whole piece, you'll see more and more of them. So just count them up, how many times that happens. Number 9, in which position, C position, G position, or middle C position, are the hands placed? Follow their clues, right? You've got the first note and the finger numbers, right? In the left hand, the notes and the finger numbers. If you try playing this, you'll find which hand position you're in. And then number 10, take a moment to feel for the B flat in the left hand. Establish at least 1 full measure of 4 beats. Before you begin playing, try to maintain a steady flow. So they're just having you read through this piece, just trying to play it, which is a really nice idea just to try it out. It's not super hard, but you definitely have to watch for flats, right? That flat translates to that flat. That's a B flat. And the natural signs and the counting. All right, so just let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully that works out.